playbook level, we used to call this 70 to 80% are global working instructions, and then there is always that 20-30% which is unique to the territory in which you're functioning, which are your local working instructions. So that local working instructions will keep changing from market to market. And since this is being heard by a lot of management students, I would add a concept, an age-old concept that comes to my mind right now, is that of the Ansoff matrix, which basically says, any kind of diversification is highly risky, and both for the product as well as for that market. So therefore it becomes very essential for you to have a really well thought through strategy, which you just can't imitate. So if it's for a new market with very low risk on product and low risk on that market per se, then of course, new market development, you can still to some extent see what others had done when they entered a particular market and make a beginning. But otherwise, diversification will require a very concentrated and a well thought through strategy, is my belief.
So we had a good mix of products from different industries and the markets as well. Will the imitation be different for services? Will the whole this phenomena of imitation, this process of imitation, this expansion from one geography or transfer from one geography to another geography, will that be different for services? My question is because for example, a lot of people say copying insurance products is easy, copying banking products is easy, copying after sales service is easy. Is it really so?
I think service is again it's more about execution, right? Look at services what we get at Taj or ITC. Everybody want to copy it, but execution what matters, right? My experience at all these places is different because they make me feel special. But if you have copied the SOP, but if you can't make me feel special, you're lost out. So service is something very personal. Here you need a very high level of EQ, and unless until you build and imbibe that kind of culture in the organization from the starting point. I remember a friend of mine, a loyal customer of Taj Hotel, and he was visiting Bangalore, got into one of the Taj property, and because he was a loyal regular customer, the manager did very smart thing, picked up his picture from one of the social media and circulated among all people who mattered, so that he was made special throughout from entry to exit. Now he has become a loyal customer. Now who is going to follow this kind of, this is imbibed in culture, because the manager thought, and every single touch point was delivering same experience to this gentleman. He is customer of Taj for lifelong, right? So services is more about a culture which organization built. Copying is easy, but execution is tough.
Also in the services, on the services front, I think it all depends on the continuity that you want to provide to the client. So if you're picking up from one area or one region and kind of transitioning or copying that into another, you may want to lift it and service it as is and gradually go with the transformation as a concept to suit the local nuances, needs, customer segment. Because if there is a risk or threat of delivery to the client, then you don't want to kind of transform and take that risk, because it will impact the overall delivery, is how I would look at it.
What I feel is that, especially when we are talking about one example that used to always be given to us when we had large centers that were supporting the customers, is look at Taj. Since you talked about Taj, that example came to my mind. Everything is the same, right? You go to the Delhi property, you go to Philippines property, everything is the soap, the way they put the tray, the napkins, the room service, all of that. Now, you have to be exactly the same, right? Whether you're catering to a customer in Europe, or you're catering to a customer in Americas, or you're doing it from India, or you're doing it from Philippines, everything has to be the same. But could we ever achieve it? We achieved it when it came to building the same type of infrastructure. We could get the same to the level of, you know, how the washrooms would be looking, or how the receptions would be, but we could never get it right when it came to the people point, right? So the touch point, the final touch point, is going to be very unique based on the culture and the kind of governance, the leadership, and all of that that you bring in into that system, you know, into that ecosystem, that will differentiate you. Otherwise, just purely imitating a model may not always make it successful.
The way I see it is that service is you have multiple ways by which you can differentiate yourself, because it is complex. We are dealing with humans. Humans are emotional, not exactly rational all the time. Very situational. In the same situation, two people can behave differently, so you need to know that. So this is an opportunity, I would say, for anybody to differentiate, and hence it is very difficult to also copy what somebody else has done, because there are infinite possibilities how you would deal that particular situation. So on one hand, this can become a challenge because there is no really that playbook which you can just follow. On the other hand, this actually opens up a lot of opportunities for you to significantly differentiate yourself, even providing a very, very traditional product and a service in a very, very old and traditional industry. So services is definitely a very different ballgame altogether.
The imitation in service is practically not possible in my view. Look, I'll just be very my usual style of being little blanket, but I think that is not possible. It's a matter of you can have a similar outcome. You can say, okay, I want to have the same quality of service in hospitality or even in professional services, but you cannot say I'll just copy their service. Right? It is practically impossible. It will always be a lot of differences, but you may still give a similar outcome. So you may be the same quality of experience, but by a different way of service. Or you may have your own signature on it, right? You cannot copy a service. Copying a service, there's so many people involved, right? Service by definition, a lot of people involved. Practically, you have to have all robots involved, right? Otherwise, you'll never be able to copy a service.
Rightly so. Services, end of the day, it is offered by a human, and every human will have different, style of serving it or executing it. Even if you make SOP, same SOP, different country, different people will, apply. So there has to be a lot of,
In a call center, people give the whole SOP, where supposedly people follow the rules the most, as compared to a slightly professional service or strategic service. Even then, you cannot.
The kind of tonality you use and the kind of language you use, that differs person to person. So it is simply cannot be copied. So a lot depends on the culture of that company also. So the company is very empathetic towards customer, then the different thing will come. But company, just for the sake of following SOP and just for sake of answering to call center, something like that, the experience will be totally different. So it all depends on the people, depends on the company culture, depends on the kind of passion employee is putting to serve the customer.
So I have one more topic to bring in. In mass product, I have seen a concept of perceived originality.
Yes.
So in mass product, for example, Colgate you gave, from there I thought. So there will be like tens of Colgate, jisme charcoal hai, namak hai, and all of that. But a lot of us think that it's the same. There's a perceived originality. So there's a concept I felt in mass product, only in mass maybe. There's a perceived originality concept also, which is different from real originality also, right? So there can be methods of strategy which are like perceived way of thinking, rather than real originality.
Very true.
Something that raises eyebrows. Oh, it has this also.
पीपल थिंक इनके पास कुछ ओरिजिनल है कुछ नहीं ऐसे, पर लोगों को लगता है इसलिए लोग बाय करते हैं. So that kind of, you have created a perception that it is the original thing. I've seen that also, like a
And that is also very difficult to imitate.
Yeah.
So here you are talking about a product where you have made the imitation very difficult, because that perceived originality is something you cannot change that easily.
Like I spoke about tonality and all when you're dealing with your customers or with stakeholders. They say what you say is not important, how you say is important. So that affects a lot, and it differentiates in customer experience or service.
Has to go differently.
Yeah.